Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and you're just getting into the gym, maybe you're trying to get in shape this year, you wanted to lose fat, build some muscle, learn about nutrition, or just see behind the scenes of what I'm up to with my own diet and training this year, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I aim to make the channel a one-stop shop where you can come and get everything you need for all things health and fitness. Okay, today's video, I'm going to walk you through one of my recent training sessions and just break down a few of the exercises and walk you through some general concepts that are really useful to grasp if you're just getting into the gym, or if you've been going to the gym for a while but you're a little bit frustrated with your results and you're wanting to make some quicker gains. So I'm currently prepping myself for a fitness photo shoot in June, which means I'm currently losing body fat. But that doesn't really change my training. The body fat reduction will come from the diet and the calorie deficit. The principles that I follow in the gym largely stay the same as when I'm in a gaining phase or even just trying to maintain my physique. So the purpose of weight training when you're in a fat loss phase is really just to stimulate muscle tissue to at least maintain the muscle that you've got. Or if you're new to the training and you've got quite a lot of body fat to lose, you can build muscle quite quickly in a fat loss phase as well, because you've got to think of body fat as stored calories. So if you are training and burning through those stored calories and consuming enough protein and getting some decent sleep, you will build muscle even in a fat loss phase. Now, because I've been training for a long time, as I get leaner, it's unlikely I'm going to build a lot of muscle whilst dieting. So the main purpose of my training is really just to stimulate muscle tissue to make sure I don't lose any muscle whilst bringing body fat levels down with lower calories. So some of the key principles that you're going to see me talk about today is a concept called reps in reserve, which is essentially how many reps you've got left in the tank at the end of each set. The general principle that I follow is on the first 2 sets, leave like 1 or 2 reps in the tank. And then on the last set, if you're on a machine and you're on an exercise where you feel comfortable, push yourself all the way to the limit. See how many reps you can do. Because in order to actually stimulate muscle growth, you need to be training hard enough. And if you've still got 10, 15 reps in the tank on every set and you don't really feel anything, it's not going to stimulate muscle in the way that you want it to. By leaving a couple of reps in the tank on the first 2 sets, it just means that you don't fatigue too early or shoot your load too early, as some might say. And then on the last set, you can really push yourself. Now, if you're following a training plan and it says 8 to 10 reps or 10 to 12 reps, and on that last set, you're able to go and do 20 reps, then you know that the weight that you've been using is probably too light and you just need to make it a bit heavier next time. So it's really useful to just go to failure on that last set so you get a really good idea of where you're currently at and what you're capable of. You can make sure you're pushing yourself hard enough to get the results. I'm going to talk about a concept called top sets and back off sets, which is basically where on some of the sets you'll see me use heavier weights and do lower reps, and then on the last set I'll reduce the weight down and do a set with more reps. The reason for that is it's just being able to get strong across multiple rep ranges, because each of the rep ranges will have a slightly different sort of like stimulus on muscle growth. Being able to move a weight from A to B with 6 reps compared to 15 to 20 reps, you're going to get more of like a metabolic stress in the muscle when you're doing the higher reps, whereas with the lower rep ranges you're going to lift more weights and get more tension and more load through the muscle. So mixing up your rep ranges and your weights is just a nice way to kind of cover all of the different sort of like mechanisms of muscle growth, let's say. In terms of the difference between machines and free weights, I tend to use machines more for really pushing myself to failure, because you can lock yourself into quite a stable environment, it's safer, and you can focus on the muscles that you're trying to work. When you're doing something like a deadlift or a bench press, pushing yourself all the way to your limits, obviously you are at a little bit more risk of injury if your technique's a little bit off because you've got more freedom to move around. So I tend to leave maybe like 1 rep in the tank on like a deadlift, but then on a machine I'll push myself all the way to my limits, and you'll see me talk about that today. And the last thing that I'll talk about is tempo. So the speed at which you're actually moving the weight from A to B. This is really important because if you're swinging the weights from A to B and you're quite new to the gym, it's going to be really hard for you to make sure you're using the right muscles. So keeping your tempo nice and slow, and I'll talk you through that when showing you the exercises, just allows you to really focus on what you're trying to achieve from that exercise, which muscles you're trying to hit, and maintain good technique, essentially. All right, so what I'm going to do is you're going to see each exercise now pop up on the screen, and I'm going to walk you through exactly what I'm doing on this exercise. So first up, we've got the flat plate loaded chest press. Here are some of the most useful technique tips on a chest press. You want your knees to be pointing out into a V, and then bring your heels under your knee and push your shoulder blades back into the bench or into the pad that you're working with. That will give you a really nice stable base to actually press from and focus on using the chest. When it comes to chest movements, I do prefer unilateral movements where each arm can kind of work separately. I just find that I get way better contractions that way. And when you're training your chest muscle actually goes from the middle of your sternum here out to the edge of the armpit. So you're looking for your elbows to go out and your elbows to go in rather than just up and down. So something like a barbell or like a Smith machine press, it's great for really working your chest very hard in this lengthened position, but because you're quite limited in terms of how well you can get your elbows in at the top of the movement, obviously if you're on a barbell, you're going to get stuck there. You can't really bring your elbows into the middle. And if you sit there now whilst watching this video and put your arms there compared to there, you'll feel you get much more of a contraction in the chest. So I tend to mix up my exercises. I don't just stick with barbell pressing when it comes to chest movements. I will use machines, dumbbells and barbells just to give the chest a slightly different challenge. But on this particular machine, I like the unilateral sort of momentum with it because I can use each arm differently and really focus on getting good contractions in the chest. Here, what I'm demonstrating on these two sets, so the first set, you'll see that I leave a couple of reps in the tank. I don't go all the way to my limit. So this comes back to the reps in reserve concept that I was talking about. On the last set, you can see that I am getting all the way to failure. So I'm getting to the point where the last rep is really slow and you're having to grind out that last rep. If I was to try and do another one, I wouldn't have been able to. And that's the point of failure. When it comes to training to failure, there are a couple of different types. You've got technical failure and mechanical failure. Technical failure is basically where your technique starts to break down. So on something like a deadlift, you're safer stopping at technical failure. Whereas on a machine, you can go to mechanical failure, which basically means the muscles are actually at their limit. And that's what I'm demonstrating on this exercise here. So I left 2 reps in reserve on the first set, and then I went all the way to failure on the last set, just to really see what I could do with that weight. Okay, moving on to the Smith machine press. The reason that I will use a Smith machine over a standard barbell press when I'm training on my own is just from a safety perspective. The Smith machine is obviously fixed in terms of its path of motion, so it's much easier again. It's very similar to a machine where I can lock in and just focus on pushing the weight from A to B and keeping it under control. Whereas on a barbell, obviously it's a little bit more unstable, and if I really want to train myself to my limits, then it's best to do it on a Smith machine when I'm training on my own, because I don't have a spotter with me to help. And I'm not the sort of person that will go and disturb someone else's session to help me in the gym. It's just not my style. I tend to have my headphones on in the zone doing my own thing. So I prefer to go on a Smith machine. On the incline Smith machine press, the main difference between an incline press and a flat press is when you're on an incline press, so you've got the bench like this, you're looking to work the top part of the chest. Now the top part of the chest actually travels this way. So you want your elbows to be tucked under at 45 degrees. So when you're on an incline press, your range of motion should look like this and your elbow should be down by your side at 45 degrees. When you're on a flat press, you want your elbows up here because you're working the main part of the pec. So that's the main difference. When you're on an incline press, as you come down, if you're all the way up here, you're going to feel a lot of tension in the shoulder. Whereas if you bring your elbows down a little bit, you'll be able to press from there, and that's going to give you much more of a contraction in the upper chest. So whenever I'm training chest, I'll always do some form of flat press and some form of incline press. So that could be an incline Smith machine and a flat plate loaded press like we've got in this session, or it could be an incline machine press and a flat dumbbell press. So I'll always do a flat and an incline. And the particular system that I'm using on the Smith machine press is the top set and back offset system that I mentioned. So you'll see on the first set, I've got more weight on the bar and I do 6 to 8 reps. And then on the second set, I take some weight off and do more reps. And that again is just helping me get strong in different rep ranges to get the different mechanisms of muscle growth. Okay, moving on to the pull down. So this is a upper body session, so there is chest and back and shoulders all included within this session. This just gives me a little bit of extra stimulus on those muscle groups that I'm most wanting to grow at the minute. So I train 4 days a week. I do push, pull, legs and arms, and then an upper body session with chest, back and shoulders. Again, just to give those muscle groups a little bit more volume and a little bit more stimulus across the week, which is going to lead to more results in those areas. On the pull down, the most important thing is to really create some stability by getting yourself locked under the pad. So if you've ever wondered what the pad is for, It's to really get yourself underneath and then pull it tight to your thighs, so that as the exercise gets harder, you can really brace against something and pull down hard and keep the tension on the right muscles. If you're not using the pad, you're going to feel very wobbly and all over the place. So make sure you're using the pad to lock yourself in, because it will help maintain good technique when your pull down starts to get tough. And what you're seeing here is, again, this is another example of the reps in reserve and failure system, where I'm leaving a couple of reps in the tank on the first set, and then you'll see on the last set I go all the way to failure. So whilst we're on the pull down, this is a nice opportunity for me to start talking a little bit more about tempo. So tempo, as I said, is the speed of the movement. The tempo that I use is 3-0-1-0 or 3-1-1-1. What that means is the 3 seconds is always the part of the movement where the weight is traveling towards the floor. So what you don't want is gravity to do the work for you, basically. So whenever the weight is traveling towards the floor, you're slowing it down. So on a press, you're going 3, 2, 1, push. 3, 2, 1, push. Now, if it's a 3-1-1-1, what that means is 1, 2, 3, and then take a 1 second pause at the bottom, press, hold it at the top, and then control it down. So when you're doing a push, it's nice and easy because it's always when the weight's just traveling towards you. Now on something like a pull down, obviously as your arms are traveling up, that's where the weight stack is traveling down. So that's why on a pull down, you'll see I'm actually going slow as my arms travel up. So it's 1, 2, 3, pull. 1, 2, 3, pull. And that's because the weight stack is traveling towards the ground as my arms are going up. So it's an opposite way of doing it. That's the main difference between push and pull, and that's what I mean by tempo with the sort of 3 seconds. On the pull down, you'll notice that I'm using a close grip. So you can do a close grip pull down, you can do a wide grip pull down, you can do a neutral grip, you can do a pronated grip, you can do supinated grip. All it does is target slightly different areas of the back. So the one that I'm demonstrating here, the close grip, and then leaning back slightly, I'm gonna get some lats, but I'm also gonna get a lot of the muscles around the middle of the back, like the rhomboids, for example. If you were to do a wide grip pull down, as you pull down, your arms are gonna be much wider, which means it's gonna bias the lats a lot more. I just tend to mix it up. Every other week, I will do a wide grip pull down, and then every other week I will do a narrow grip pull down, just to target the muscles in slightly different ways. Okay, moving on to the cable row. When it comes to training back, I'll always do some form of vertical pull, so from top to bottom, and I'll always do some form of horizontal pull. If I've done a narrow grip on the vertical pull, I'll then go and do a wide grip on the horizontal pull. And again, it's just to hit slightly different parts of the back. If I do a wide grip pull down, then I'll do a narrow grip on the horizontal pull. So in this session, I'm doing a wide grip cable row. The wide grip cable row with my elbows up high, pulling wide, is going to bias all of the muscles along the top of the back, such as the rear delts, the traps, and the rhomboids. So usually I would like to use a chest support for this sort of exercise. So in the gym that I train in, they do have a chest supported cable row, or I could use a bench, but everything was busy. So I opted for the standard cable row, but ideally I would do this with a chest support so I can brace against it and really focus on pulling hard into the muscles. Sometimes when you've not got the chest support, it's easy to use a bit of momentum, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just prefer using a chest support because I find that I get a much better contraction, which is obviously gonna help with my results. Okay, and the last exercise is a cable pullover. So this is quite a hard exercise to master, but you're essentially trying to target the lats. The most important thing is, as you pull towards you, you're starting from a really stretched position. So you've got the lats nice and straight, and then as you pull, you're bending your elbows slightly to allow you to actually get your arms slightly behind your ribs, which is going to fully contract the lats. It is quite a difficult exercise, this one. It takes a bit of practice, but it is a good exercise for finishing off with a high rep cable exercise to get a good pump on in the lats. Right, so I did finish this session with a dumbbell shoulder press, a lat raise, and a push-up in a giant set, but my camera died, so I didn't film it. But that's what I went on to finish, and I'll make sure that I get that next time and add that in. Cool, hopefully you found that useful. This is exactly the sort of thing you can expect from the channel, where I'll show you behind the scenes of what I'm up to, but also give you some tips from it as well. I'll be doing my nutrition walkthroughs so you can see how I'm sticking to low calories, how I'm structuring my food to support my performance, even though I'm dieting for a shoot. I'll be putting out some mindset content, how I'm staying motivated, all sorts. Literally, I want to make the channel somewhere that you can subscribe to and get weekly content that's going to support you with your own journey and help you feel healthier, happier, fitter, stronger, or of course, in better shape. So go and hit that subscribe button and I'll catch you next time.